Can a person live again? If Mu Fengzhao were to answer this question a month ago, she would shake her head resolutely. There is only one life for a person, and it will be over at the end. She cherishes her life. As a member of the assassination squad of a dark organization, she knows how to save her life most effectively, but in one mission, she never thought that her life would be lost in the hands of a child. When Mu Fengzhao thinks of the pictures in his mind, he can't wait to yell at him, and he can't wait to choke the little person who is sleeping soundly next to him. I still remember that at that time, she proudly stood alone on the top floor of the Rubik's Cube, with a machine gun in her hand, shooting suddenly at the private plane in the air, but also cleverly shot the target person, and she was delighted. I thought that after I went back, I could get promoted and make a fortune, or return to a normal society, but I didn't expect a child to fall into the air. The child who suddenly fell from the air hung on her, without any sign. She was taken aback and caught him instinctively. The little boy was dressed in ancient clothes with a round face and deep eyes. He wrapped his hands around her neck and saw her pouting in disdain. "Xiao Feng, hurry up and go with the young master." "Boy, who are you talking to? I'm doing a task, get out of here." Where did the child appear? There was disdain in his words. Mu Fengzhao didn't have time to think so much, and dragged the child down while avoiding the opposite attack. The bullets were too concentrated, so she had to hide the child and hid on the back of the building, the windowsill where only one person was allowed to stand. At this moment, the plane is hovering in the air, and they are easy to spot. Mu Fengzhao was thinking about countermeasures, how to escape safely. There were broken glass fragments everywhere, a piece of glass cut her skin, and blood flowed out. The little boy looked at her injured, his eyes were full of distress, but he said nonchalantly, "It's useless, I need my little master to protect you. Just jump from here to my little master." "Jump down, are you crazy? Close your eyes, don't you even listen to what I said, Xiao Feng? Xiao Feng, I'll hit you hard when I go back." The little boy slapped her arm bitterly, with little strength. Mu Fengzhao thought he was crazy, he must be crazy. "How come you come to such a dangerous place, say strange things, and dress so strangely? Stop it! Believe it or not, I will throw you out of here. Go with Xiao, this is not for you." The little boy pouted, and Mu Fengzhao gritted his teeth to maintain his weight, angering his heart. Isn't this little kid a fool? This is looking for death, doesn't he know? Whose kid? You stay for me, don't move. Mu Fengzhao squeezed this sentence from between his teeth. "Xiao Feng, listen, only when you reach that world can you be reborn from the ashes, this world is not for you." The little boy frowned, stepped on the wall with one foot, and knocked the two of them down with his own strength. Your sister's Mu Fengzhao never thought that she had died so wrongly. She was agile and survived rounds of bullets, but in the end she was defeated by a child. He was sent by the enemy to destroy her. There was a loud noise and a sharp pain in her head, and she closed her eyes deeply. Dead. In the dream, an extremely beautiful woman looked at her with watery eyes, and looked very similar to the boy who claimed to be Little Master. "Who are you?" She instinctively backed away a few steps, keeping a distance from the opponent. "It doesn't matter who I am, I want to tell you that the place you are about to be is a place where you are ashamed of being ordinary and speak with your ability. Samurai is the most common occupation there. It is divided into swordsman, stickman, and swordsman. There are 7 classes of red, orange, red, green, blue, and purple. Each class is divided into heaven, earth, mysterious, and yellow. Mage is the most frightening profession there. It is divided into 5 skills, gold, wood, water, fire, and earth. Each skill has 7 levels, red, orange, red, green, blue, and purple. There are divisions of heaven, earth, mystery, and yellow. Physicians are the most respected profession there. They are divided into alchemists and poison refiners. There is no class distinction, only the elixir. There are 7 levels of pill, and the physician who can make 7 pill is the top physician. You have to remember. Warriors, mages, physicians, these common professions have nothing to do with you. You don't have any talents. You are a scorn of the population. However, in addition to talents, there are many treasures in this world that can help ordinary people live. Obtain ancient artifacts to create a new country, and some people encounter ancient beasts to gain immortality. God sends you here, He will give you the luck of 9 deaths, and the opportunity to obtain treasures more easily than ordinary people. I hope you can live well. Go down. Everybody's despised waste. Mu Fengzhao listened to her patiently, nodded, turned and left. Where are you going? The woman asked. The luck of a lifetime of 9 deaths, I just can't beat Xiao Qiang, get the artifact, and I can't die if I'm snatched away by my own powerful person. What exactly does God want to do when sending me here? If it's an experiment, please tell me, the beautiful sister. Mu Fengzhao, have never been an honest person in my duty, and I would rather destroy myself if I am controlled by anyone. The woman let out a chuckle, her body was slowly disappearing, and finally she told Mu Fengzhao, this is a bet between God and you. If you can fight to the end, you can get everything. But you lose or automatically if you admit defeat, you will fall into a dead end, and you will never be able to turn over forever. Who are you scaring? Mu Fengzhao wanted to refute but found that she couldn't open her mouth. A huge sleepiness struck, and she fell into a deep sleep. When she woke up, she found herself lying on a hard bed. What is this place? An empty house made of earth, a wooden table, a teapot with soil, a broken bench, nothing else. Intuition told her that this is where she settled. Suddenly the door was kicked open, and a shadow fell to the ground. Then there appeared a small immature face, in stark contrast to the immature facial features, his frowning and serious look. Xiao Feng, it's fine if you wake up. If you sneak into the river again, Xiao will definitely not be able to spare you. Mu stared at Mu Fengzhao on the bed, his 5-year-old figure looked weak, but his momentum was unusual. We came out of Mu's family together. You are Xiao's maid. We just can't find the way back. You are not homeless. Why are you jumping into the river? There is not much savings on the young master, and if he can't live in the inn, he will not starve to death. As long as you take good care of me, and when I return to Mu's house, I will definitely let my dad make you a maid and give you a 3-in and 3 out house. Big maid, big house. Mu Fengzhao smiled, really don't know what silly thing this kid is talking about. Once she has the opportunity, she must figure out how and why she came here. Now, the most important thing for her is to fill her stomach. As for this child, she grabbed his hand, threw it into the room, closed the door, and solved it. She didn't know that the child in front of her was the only bloodline of the head of the Mu family, and her current identity was the personal servant who protected him. Mu Fengzhao. You wicked woman! Diao slave! Quickly let the little master go out. A few months later. An old donkey cart swayed through the forest with 2 people sitting on it. Speaking of these 2 people, one is an ugly and excessive woman with scars all over her face, like a cannibal in hell. One is a little boy who has fascinated thousands of women. It seems that humans and animals are harmless and fascinated by sentient beings, but they are the objects of hatred by the people of Woolite Town. These 2 can be said to be doing all kinds of evil. They were kidnapped everywhere and hurt good women and men, and they also collected protection fees. They became famous in Woolite Town in just a few months, and they could hear miserable crying wherever they went. Fortunately, they decided to move out of Woolite Town. Although no one knew the reason, their departure made Woolite Town people happy for a long time. At this moment, Mu, who had always been serious, went uncharacteristically and actually lay on the donkey cart and counted the silver. A pile of 10 copper plates, they have collected more than 100 piles. The donkey pulling the cart is miserable. Xiao Feng, where are we going? Miu Miu asked, holding a piece of gold. Go to Shili town. Miu Fengzhao replied without raising his head. Miu Miu suddenly widened his eyes and said excitedly, the Miu family is in the capital, not a town. I know. You don't know. Since we are not going to the capital and you can't find the way, why are we going to that town? Miu Miu didn't understand. He just wanted to go home early. He had to move around in just a few months. He had to pack things every time. It was very troublesome to pack things. Miu Miu pouted again. Miu Fengzhao glanced at him lightly and knew what he was thinking. What? I don't listen to my decision? Don't look at me wronged, if you dare to cry, you will spank your ass. Bad. Miu Miu quickly held back when the words came to his lips. He is the young master. In the past, his hands did not touch the sun and spring water, and he felt tired after touching it, but since his maid was rescued from jumping into the river a few months ago, everything has changed. He has to wait for Miu Fengzhao to get up and change clothes and wash his face. He does all the hard work and brushing his teeth, otherwise he will be assaulted. His young master is really aggrieved. Miu Miu secretly looked at Miu Fengzhao from the side of the light, and her curved eyelashes flickered, and compared to before, nothing seemed to have changed. Miu Fengzhao, a girl with exactly the same name, but with a completely different character and destiny. 3 years ago, the original Miu Fengzhao was a maid of the Miu family. Because of her outstanding performance, the owner gave her a name, and she was able to take care of the young master personally. It was a great honor. The Miu family is one of the top 10 families in Beijing. One day the owner of the family was away from home and Miu Miu was going to play on the street. Miu Fengzhao followed, but he didn't expect to be hit by a trafficker, put on a cloth bag, and transported to a place where he didn't know where it was. Poor mountains and rivers, no one knows, no money can be difficult to move, not to mention that she is a weak little maid, or an unskilled scumbag, with a child, life is even more difficult. The day after she was abducted, she jumped into the river. Miu Fengzhao is dead, and Miu Fengzhao, a member of the assassination team, is alive, with scars on his face, and is the close-knit mate of the 5-year-old boy Miu Miu. They stayed anonymous in Wulite town, not to let traffickers sell them a second time, and to inquire about the location of the Miu family secretly, but I don't know what happened. After a few months, the Miu family never sent anyone to look for them. Until a while ago, Miu Fengzhao used money to buy some news. It turned out that the Miu family had undergone a great change a while ago, and the family owner did not come back from a long trip. The young master of the Miu family disappeared, and the owner of the Miu family transposed and became Miu Miu's uncle. After learning the news, she had an idea. Perhaps, they were sold by human traffickers because someone in the Miu family wanted to get rid of Miu Miu. Although this is only a hypothesis, if it is true, once the people of the Miu family know that they are still alive, it will only lead to killing. The wheels creaked and rolled out 2 marks. There was a gust of wind, and countless leaves fell from the forest. Murderers! There are 50 bandits in all, and they all have big swords in their hands. There are 40 horses. They can't run because of speed. The killer's intuition was very accurate. Miu Fengzhao squinted his eyes, and these bandits stared at them almost from the moment they entered the forest. Xiao Feng, I'm afraid. Miu Miu said, holding all the copper plates, but there was not a trace of fear in his eyes, but there was a bit of excitement, and he could finally see Xiao Feng making a move. In the past, no matter how he ran, he could always be caught and spanked. This made him very curious about how good Miu Fengzhao was. Didn't she say that she is a waste who can't practice anything? At this time, he didn't realize that if he failed, the 2 of them would be chopped into meat sauce. It shows how much he trusts Miu Fengzhao. The corner of Miu Fengzhao's mouth raised slightly, and he sent him a task: you will protect the money. If there is a copper plate missing, I will leave it to you for dinner tonight. Supper. Miu Miu murmured, frowning. Cooking is what he hates most, but he has a talent for cooking, and a bowl of rice can be burnt deliciously and elastically. It's really annoying, she always secretly takes a copper plate from him, he can't do it if he doesn't want to. He is the young master. Seeing his reaction, Mu Fengzhao smiled slightly. The scars on her face looked like she had seen a ghost in broad daylight. Standing on the donkey cart very chic, she shouted, "A good dog does not stand in the way. All the heroes present, if you have the courage, please show your face." As soon as the voice fell, the rustling voices in the forest became denser. When these bandits heard what she said, they all concentrated in her direction. 1, 2, 3. Mu Fengzhao counted the seconds in his heart, listening to the bandits' footsteps getting closer, the smile on his face became brighter. These bandits are very famous in the neighborhood, wherever they go, there is no grass, and it is common to good women and kill people and do anything evil. The bandit leader is a yellow-ranked warrior, and when he arrives in the Huangduan, the government can't do anything to them. 10 seconds later, the bandit leader rushed out of the bush on a brown horse with 2 portraits in his hand. He stopped in front of Mu Fengzhao for a while. "Who is this ugly girl?" In desperation, the bandit leader opened one of the portraits. It was a beautiful woman with a glamorous country and extremely charming eyes. Although she was wearing rags and linen, she was definitely more beautiful than Mu Qianggui, the #1 beauty in Beijing. The other portrait is of a very cute little boy with round eyes and long eyelashes, which is aristocratic at first glance. Except for the little boy who fits the characteristics of the portrait, the woman is nothing like it. His face is covered with scars, and his skin is dark. If he was abducted, it would make sense. While the bandit leader was looking at the portrait, he didn't notice that Mu Fengzhao's eyes were about to eat people. He stared at the portrait in his hand, trying to burn it. As long as her appearance is slightly dressed up, she will be noticeable wherever she goes, so she chose to disguise and hide herself. "Hey! Do you know where the child's clothes maid is?" The bandit leader pointed to Miu Miu and asked. "Do not know. Then you leave this child to me, and I will let you out of this forest." "You don't need to let me out." Mu Fengzhao looked at the bandit indifferently, as if looking at a dead person. "What do you want this kid to do?" "None of your business." "Who sent you to kill us?" "Stinky lady, what do you care about so much? Since you don't hand it over, then I will kill you." The bandit carried a big sword and rushed over on a horse. He is a yellow-ranked warrior. Mu Fengzhao has not seen how powerful a yellow-ranked warrior is. "I saw a yellow halo from the big knife in the bandit's hand. That is the symbol of a yellow warrior. Be careful!" Miu Miu yelled anxiously. Seeing that the bandits were about to chop over, he grabbed the copper plate in his arms and threw it out forcefully. The copper plate is made of black iron fragments, it is very heavy, and a red mark appears instantly when it hits the face. The bandit was in pain and hurriedly pulled the horse. At this moment, Mu Fengzhao dashed forward, stepped on the bandit's face, rolled over in the air, and landed firmly on the donkey cart. The bandit leader fell to the ground, and the frightened horse stomped on a foot. The painting in his hand fell into Mu Fengzhao's hands. "Sick lady! The power of a yellow warrior is nothing more than that. Spare your life. Go back and tell the person who hired you to kill my Mu Fengzhao's life and this child's life, he can't touch it." After speaking, Mu Fengzhao took a glance, then tore the portrait to pieces, and jumped onto the frightened horse. He pulled the reins hard and clamped the horse's abdomen with his legs. The frightened horse slowly stabilized. She tied the horse to the donkey cart and let go of the donkey that was pulling the cart, holding the reins in her hand. "Drive." All movements are as smooth as clouds and flowing water. Ma quickly pulled the car away, and behind him was a black bandit holding a big knife. The bandit looked at the leaving figure of the carriage in astonishment, covering his face with footprints, and was silently stunned. "Who is this person?" Mu Fengzhao hurriedly left the forest. If they were a step late, they would be overtaken by the bandits. Who is going to kill them anyway? What kind of grudge? Mu Fengzhao's thinking eyes were terrible. Mu shrank in the car, but he felt reassuring warmth in her arms. On a big tree, a black-haired man with a dragon face mask stared at the figure of the woman on the carriage. Who is she? The anchored man raised his brows, feeling that she seemed familiar, and hurried to catch up. The nephew of the head of the Mu family is named Mu Mu. According to seniority, Mu Mu wants to call the current patriarch uncle. The number one beauty in Beijing, Mu Qiangui, is the eldest lady of the Mu family and the eldest daughter of Mu Yang, the owner of the Mu family. She is proficient in piano, chess, calligraphy, and painting, and is kind. A great master. Most sought after by Beijing men. I heard that her beauty also shocked the royal prince. While eating noodles, Mu Fengzhao inquired about Mu Qiangui's deeds, only to find that all of them were talking about her benefits and complimenting her for her talents and appearance. Mu Mu accidentally said that this Miss Mu's family had bullied him, burned his mother's relics, broke a jade bottle in the ancestral hall, and was found to blame him. In her scattered memories, Mu Qiangui once wanted to use money to buy her, so that she would secretly kill Mu Mu. If killing all the brothers is a measure of a good sister, then she is really a good sister. If you are destined, I really want to meet Miss Mu family. Miss Mu family is a fire mage, interesting. Xiao Feng Feng, is Shili town close to the capital? When can we return to the capital? Mu Mu said vaguely with noodles in his mouth. Mu Fengzhao lifted his chopsticks and hit it down. Don't talk while eating, especially if you still have something in your mouth. Understood. I still don't know who is going to kill us. Shili town is not far from the capital, and the most dangerous place is the safest place. At the feet of the emperor, I don't believe that killings and overstocking can happen so frequently, and those assassinations can still be like this. Arrogant. The girl's words are bad, said a man next to him wearing a dragon face mask, his eyes watching Mu Fengzhao tenderly, as if what he saw was not an ugly woman, but the person closest to him. Why did he look at her with such a look? Do they know each other? Mu Fengzhao hated being stared at by strangers with this look, as if all the secrets had been seen through. She suddenly kicked the bench over, unexpectedly being stepped on by him. This son, we don't know each other. The man wearing the dragon mask smiled and said, can't you talk? No. Mu Fengzhao began to look at the man in front of him. He wore a valuable belt around his waist, made of fine silk and studded with a gem of good color, even though he was wearing a mask. But his distinctive temperament can't be concealed, faintly revealing a trace of extravagance. Did they know each other before? Mu Fengzhao was puzzled. She was just a maid in Mu's house. How could she know someone who was top grade in dress? It's a pity that there are only scattered memories in her mind, and she doesn't remember them anymore. Want to know who I am? You will know soon. The man was mysterious and told her, there have been many ancient artifacts in Shili town. Although they all happened hundreds of years ago, there are still many more. The nobles and youngsters from the capital are here especially, you have to be careful. After speaking, he put down the money and left. What a strange person! Mu Mu blinked and took out a dragon-shaped jade pendant, which he had just pulled from the man and was not found. Look at Xiao Feng Feng. It's the dragon. The dragon-shaped jade pendant cannot be worn by anyone, except for the royal family. Mu Fengzhao and Mu Mu stared at each other. Maybe they were in trouble and were caught by the royal family. There is one thing that the man said rightly. There are really many nobles and youngsters in this Shili town. After they had a meal of noodles, 5 nobles and youngsters from the capital came into the shop. One of them said, what a broken town, there are no artifacts, not even nice women. Do you think this is still the capital? It would be nice to have it. He is fascinated by Miss Mu's family. Everyone is ugly. If you have the ability, Please ask Miss Mu's family. What's the use if you are obsessed with it, you have no ambition. I heard that Miss Mu's family will arrive in Shili Town tomorrow and ask Brother Lu to stop her, maybe. Mu Qianggui is coming to Shili Town. Nai Yuan. But Mu Fengzhao was hoping to meet Mu Qianggui. In a small town like Shili Town, if something happened, Mu Qianggui would be unlucky. Xiao Feng, why are you smiling so? Wretched? Mu didn't dare to say those two words, for fear of being beaten. Mu Fengzhao asked him, if someone who always bullies you kneels and apologizes to you, would you forgive her? It depends on who that person is. If it's you, then Xiao can consider it. Then you can't wait forever. The next morning, Mu got up earlier than anyone else. 1, 2. Mu counted the money. At the end, he found that the copper plate was less than 10. It hurts when he remembered that he smashed the bandit's face yesterday and still had the face money. Don't count, it will be spent sooner or later anyway. Mu Fengzhao said while pulling Mu. Today's Xiao Feng is very gentle, is it his illusion? In the past, if more than a dozen copper plates were used in a day, Xiao Feng would have gone out to collect protection fees and earn some money. Mu knew the reason immediately. He was pulled into a clothing store, where a dazzling array of clothes hung in red, orange, yellow, and green. He would be dazzled. I know that you usually have a lot of deposits. It just so happens. I don't have any money. You will pay later. Mu blinked. If he heard correctly, he was going to help Xiao Feng pay for the clothes. Who is the young master? Yes. As long as the clothes are not expensive. But it is impossible to think about it, especially when it comes to moving money bags. Mu Fengzhao nodded in satisfaction, ignoring what he was saying. Mu's concept of saving is very precious. Unlike the young master of a big family, Mu Fengzhao looked at him with a smile in his eyes. The owner of the garment shop is a woman who looks less than 30 years old. She is well maintained, and her skin is white and tender. When she saw a guest coming, she immediately went up to greet him, "Welcome Light." Mu Fengzhao turned into a scarred woman, which was very disgusting. When the boss saw that the customer looked like this, he immediately lost his smile, but when he saw the child next to him, he immediately showed a motherly smile. The boss said to Mu Fengzhao angrily, "The clothes in the shop are very expensive, and they need to be worn by girls with good temperament. I advise you to go to another store. It's almost noon, and there will be more guests at that time. What if you scare other guests?" The boss thought in his heart, and he didn't wait to see this ugly girl in front of him. Mu Fengzhao smiled, ignoring the boss's words. She saw a white dress hanging on the shelf, made of silk, white and flawless. "How much is that dress?" she asked. 100 texts. I bought it. Mu Fengzhao put 100 copper plates in the hands of the boss, and the boss took the money, so it was hard to say anything. At this time, passing a luxurious carriage at the door, the people in the car saw the white clothes in the shop, and were happy to ask the servant girl to buy it, but they were told that they had bought it. The people in the car did not hurry, lifted the curtain, and walked out of the car slowly. Wow! The passers-by couldn't help exclaiming when they saw the woman getting on and off the carriage. Almond big eyes, cherry little mouth, this must be a noble lady from Beijing. The boss opened his mouth when he saw it, and such a beautiful girl is worthy of her clothes. But the boss looked at Mu Fengzhao and sighed. Mu Qianggui walked into the clothing store, pointed at the clothes still on the shelf and said, "I heard that this clothes has already been bought, right?" "Yes, and this is the one in the shop." "Who is it?" Mu Qianggui asked, while looking at Mu Fengzhao, because she was the only customer in the store, and there was a child, so who did she look at? Mu Fengzhao smiled. "Otherwise, how about if we can wear this dress with charm? Give this dress to whom, how about it?" Mu Qianggui suggested confidently. The boss hit it off, put the 100 copper plates in Mu Fengjiao's hands, and said to her, "I think this young lady makes sense. If this dress is still good looking, sell it to whoever." Mu Fengjiao sneered, "Why? Although I don't look good, I like this dress, and I paid for it first. Even if I don't look good, it's my business." Mu Qianggui also smiled, "Such abusive thing will be struck by lightning." "Really? But I don't think you look good." "What?" Mu Qianggui lost her smiling face and snorted coldly, "Then see who looks better in this dress." After that, she asked the maid to take down the dress first, and then confidently walked to the back to change the clothes. After a while, Mu Qianggui walked out, wearing white clothes, like daffodils in full bloom, turning her hostility into nothingness and enhancing her gentle and watery temperament. The boss smiled and accepted the 100 copper plates, but they were snatched by Mu Fengjiao. "This girl, you have already lost." "I haven't crossed it yet, how do you know?" Mu Qianggui was scornful in her heart, but on the surface she took off the clothes again, and kindly handed it to Mu Fengjiao. "It's okay, you can try it." The maid on one side whispered, "It's so ugly and it's embarrassing to come out, ugly." Mu Mu heard it, and ran over and stepped on that maid's foot, then showed innocent big eyes, "Sorry yo, I didn't expect your feet to be so big." "You." The maid was blocked with nothing to say. During this period, Mu Fengjiao had changed her clothes. When she appeared in the eyes of everyone, it was no surprise that the scars on her face formed a sharp contrast with the white clothes, just like the devil in put on human clothes. Very contrary to peace. "Ugly monsters!" the maid cursed. Mu Qianggui criticized the maid, "Even if it is a fact, don't tell it." The boss frowned tightly and looked even more unhappy. Mu Fengjiao touched his face and hooked the corners of his mouth, "Sorry, I was too tired yesterday. I forgot to wash my face. Do you have water here?" Mu Mu understood what Xiao Fengfeng wanted to do, and immediately brought the tea over and offered it with both hands. "It's not hot, please." Mu Fengjiao dipped a cloth in public and wiped his face. After a while, the makeup was gone. If Mu Qianggui wears white clothes, just like gentle watery daffodils, then Mu Fengjiao wears white clothes, and she is a fairy from the heaven, fluttering and independent, feathered and immortal. In the spring, the endless petals of the peach forest in the palace are the most unforgettable scenery. Her appearance is more unforgettable than that scene. The owner of the garment shop opened his mouth wide, twice as big as when she first saw Mu Qianggui. She only hoped that she could forgive her rudeness. After thinking about it, she did not do too much. Mu Qianggui was also surprised. What surprised her even more was that the woman in front of her looked familiar. Where did they meet? Is she Mu Fengjiao? If she is Mu Fengjiao, isn't the child? Impossible, they are already dead. What happened to the children next to her? They don't look alike, but living under the same roof, he feels so familiar to Mu Qianggui. "You are, Mu Fengjiao." Mu Qianggui stared at her unblinkingly, waiting for her answer. Know her, and call her name, look arrogant, more aggressive than ordinary women. Mu Qianggui, finally met. Just as Mu Fengjiao was about to answer, he ran into a character called Mu's housekeeper. When he saw Mu Mu, he saw that he had been put on makeup and ordered him to wash Mu Mu's face. Then he respectfully said, "Master, Master. I miss you very much. I have been looking for you for the past few months. I hope you can go back with us." When Mu Qianggui listened, his eyes were about to burst into flames, and he grabbed the butler's collar. "What are you talking about? Daddy has been looking for it for several years." "Yes, Missy." Mu Qianggui stared at Mu Mu and Mu Fengjiao, her teeth itching with anger. Why didn't she see it just now? If it is known that the maid in the mansion is more beautiful than her eldest lady, if it is known that Mu Mu will come back to inherit the position of patriarch, then she will be worthless. The housekeeper is the confidant of the patriarch, and loves this young lady very much, but now is not when the young lady is here, he has more important things to accomplish. Master, come back with us. The outside is too dangerous. Miu Miu hates the so-called warm Miu family, all are intrigues, but there is his father there and his memories. He suddenly raised his head and looked at Miu Fengzhao. Xiao Feng, we can go home. As soon as the voice fell, Miu Fengzhao felt the pain that touched the soul. It was a feeling that he had never felt before. Missing, guilty, sad, happy. The original Miu Fengzhao remains in her body, let her, there is no way to refuse. She could have not returned to Miu's house, not as Miu Miu's personal maid. But with grace and revenge, she can live again, thanks to the sacrifice and dedication of the original master. The original owner lived very poorly. Why is she not good enough? In the talented Miu family, there is no place at all. Everywhere is squeezed out. The original Miu Fengzhao didn't know how to resist. She was just a maid, without a name or surname, so she could only be bullied. I endure it myself, but I don't have the ability to resist. It's different now. Miu Fengzhao followed them into the Miu's hotel. As the young master's personal servant girl, the butler also provided her with two helpers named Chunyua and Kaihuyu. Chunyua Kaihuyu had just entered the shogunate and heard that she only took care of Miu Miu, who was their predecessor, and an expression of admiration appeared in her eyes instantly. Miu Miu couldn't feel safe sleeping alone, so he ran to find Miu Fengzhao with bare feet. As soon as they appeared, the two maids appeared like nymphs, and their saliva was almost flowing to the ground. How could there be such a cute child? Seeing the heart is about to melt. Miu Miu was proud of his face. He was very good at eating in Woolite Town, and he looked so urged to have a kiss. He was the most popular milk doll in Woolite Town. However, it is such a milk doll who, with someone's acquiescence, became a little devil who was kidnapped in Woolite Town. The most important thing is that pretending to be cute and selling cute is a killer move. He has researched himself. He specializes in dealing with young ladies, and he collects all the money he pitted. Xiao Feng, Xiao can't sleep anymore. Miu Miu felt his belly, frowning. Miu Fengzhao smiled, revealing the white tooth shell, just like the mysterious girl of Jushan Palace, graceful and holy. Chunyua and Kaihuyu both stared at it. However, do you want me to accompany you? Your skin is itchy again, right? I'm going out for a trip, and I need money. I got it. Miu Miu hesitated for a long time, and slowly took out 10 copper plates from his arms, looking very reluctant. Save some flowers, not much. It's really not much, only a few hundred copper plates. Miu Miu pouted his small mouth, and reached out and touched the pocket that Xiao Feng made for him. Is there no money? Miu Fengzhao heard the words, and took out a jade bracelet of good quality, and then took out a butterfly hairpin studded with precious stones. After digging for a long time, until the entire table was filled, Miu Miu was so surprised that he could shove a big duck egg in his mouth, and in a blink of an eye he returned to his normal expression. Stealing food, unjust. She has never been short of money, but she kept a low profile. She said to Chunyua Kaihuyu, take these to the pawn shop, and turn around to buy some good clothes. How can I wear shabby clothes when I go back to Miu's house? Let Chunyua Kaihuyu do things for her to avoid being monitored, and sent Miu Miu back to sleep, and Miu Fengzhao turned the whole hotel around. The steward said that they would stay here for 3 days, and Miu Qianggui was going to look for the artifact in Shili Town. Whether she could find a magician of the fire system was another matter, but it was certain to stay for a while. After a while, Miu Fengzhao got a clear idea of the general structure of the entire hotel, and kept it firmly in his mind. This was the basic skill of being a killer. She also knew which room Miu Qianggui lived in. It was getting late, so it's better to visit. She climbed into the gap in the wall with one hand, like a spider clinging to it. Miu Qianggui's room was on the 2nd floor, and Mu Fengzhao could easily find a good place to squat. The lights in the room were bright, and Mu Qianggui was wearing a pink robe with white and tender shoulders. She was choosing expensive jewelry in front of the dressing table. Suddenly the door opened and a handsome man walked in. As soon as she saw the man, her heartbeat started to beat and she felt familiar. He is Mu Fengzhao's original crush, his name is Lu Nanking. Looking carefully at the familiar and unfamiliar face, it is indeed quite attractive, and then I think that the original Mu Fengzhao was bullied by the people in the house. It was Lu Nanking who rushed out to speak for her. She was hurt for the first time. Take care, it makes sense if you fall in love with him. It's so late, why is he here? Moreover, it is so easy to enter Mu Qianggui's room, could it be? In the next second, they seemed to be confirming Mu Fengzhao's guess. The two of them looked at each other and smiled, then hooked each other's neck, and began to frantically extract the sweetness they wanted from each other. Lu Nanking picked up the beauty in front of him and was about to walk towards the bed. Mu Qianggui was unhappy. Let go of me. What's happenin'? Do you know who I saw today? Mu Fengzhao, it is the little maid who pestered you back then. A lowly thing, what can it be like to look beautiful, and not one of the scumbags in the brothel? The ghost is not going away. Lu Nanking broke his saliva with a look of contempt and disgust. Not only her, but also the hapless young master she served. Dad didn't know what evil he was hitting, so he asked the butler to take them back. Humph, a stinky girl without a father and no mother, and a stinky kid, still want to inherit the position of patriarch? It's a joke. Qianggui, I heard that my uncle's position as the head of the house is only temporary. I heard that Mu Mu's father is the real head of the Mu family. Where did you hear? Fart. My father is the real patriarch of the Mu family, Mu Mu? What kind of thing? I'm a fire mage, what about him? A child only knows nothing, so what qualifications does he have? Missy then. Qianggui, I mean that the Mu family has always respected blood relatives. The old man of the Mu family was transferred to Mu Mu's father, and now he is letting Mu Mu go back. It is very likely to pass on the position of his patriarch. Grandfather. Mu's old lady? Who is that? Mu Fengzhao thought about this character carefully, but found nothing. Since she was working in the Mu family, she had never seen the legendary Mu family grandfather. He only heard that there was a master in the Mu family who practiced outside all year round. Mu Mu's father wanted to follow that master. I encountered an accident when I went out to practice. That master is the old lady of Mu's family? Is it Mu Mu's grandfather? Whether it is the case or not, this is the first time I have heard of it and it is not credible. Mu Qianggui had the same thoughts as Mu Fengzhao for the first time. She had been staying at Mu's house, but she had never heard of Mu's grandfather, let alone met. A person suddenly appeared, and no one would believe it. Mu Qianggui thought about it, and felt that she shouldn't be entangled. Anyway, the two wastes faced her green-level sky-level fire mage, immortal and disabled. When the time came, she secretly made some tricks, saying that she had never seen them. Nanqing, are you still coveting the beauty of that cheap girl? You know how difficult it is for me to you from her. You are so good, how can you wrong yourself to marry that woman? The entire capital, Mu Qianggui is the most outstanding big lady. Since I am already devoted to you, you have to treat me well, otherwise. I have to say that Mu Qianggui is really a stunner. A look in his eyes makes Lu Nanking fascinated. As if losing his soul, he kept swearing, I, Lu Nanking, will only adore Qianggui for the rest of my life. If I break my oath, the sky will thunder. Don't say that, I hope you are well. The curtain fell, and the two people on the bed hugged each other, both indulged in each other's softness, and the whole room was filled with extravagance. Mu Fengzhao made a grimace outside the window. Fortunately, she was secretly in love with Lu Nanking at the time, otherwise how many green hats should there be on top of her head? Lu Nanking is one of the 4 great young men in the capital. It goes without saying that he is handsome. He is also the eldest master of the Lu family in the top 10 families in the capital. They all say that he will be the head of the Lu family in the future. Ying Ying Yanyan next to him has always been not less. Early the next morning, Mu Fengzhao had just left the room and just hit Lu Nanking's waist with Mu Qianggui's arms around him. The crimson strawberries on their necks were really spicy. Mu Qianggui was not ashamed after being hit by someone, but because it was Mu Fengzhao, her waist straightened and her face was red. Mu Fengzhao found it ridiculous. She is just a maid, and Mu Qianggui is a maid, how can she always have the same knowledge as her? Instead, it was Lu Nanking. Seeing Mu Fengzhao in white clothes, her eyes lit up. It turned out that she was like this. Can't help feeling full of emotions, completely forgetting yesterday's vow, something seems to be growing quietly in my heart. Hey, isn't this Fengzhao? Why did you wake up so early? I just want to introduce someone to you. This. Mu Qianggui smiled, pretending to be innocent and said, you see, I have forgotten, you two are old acquaintances, Lu Gongzi saved your life, you have already promised it secretly. Lu Nanking touched her nose awkwardly, pushed Mu Qianggui with her hand, and whispered, don't be like this. Why, I can't bear it. Mu Qianggui snorted coldly, and looked at Mu Fengzhao coldly, as if she was about to pull out her skin. Mu Qianggui was proud, holding Lu Nanking's hand happily. Mu Fengzhao took a closer look at Lu Nanking's appearance. What kind of sweet pastry is this? You have to stand behind a woman before you dare to raise your head, cowardly, with other tokens pinned on her body, hooking up Ying Yanyan outside, shameless, such a person is a joke to the whole Mu family. It's ridiculous that Mu Qianggui didn't know it, but was proud of it. Miss, please feel free to use it. The slave and maid used to be blind, but now the eyes are healed. Mu Fengzhao stretched out his hands indifferently, but felt uncomfortable in his heart. The remnants of his body actually hoped that she could keep the man. The owner loves Lu Nanking very much. Lu Nanking secretly received her tokens, which means he has admitted her, but he ignores the cynicism of the world to her, and hooks up with other women. What use does this kind of man want him? It's scum. Mu Fengzhao, don't be too hard to admit it. Everyone knows that you love him so much. Give up, now he loves me. Mu Qianggui clenched his fist tightly, his nails were about to sink into the flesh. Unexpectedly, Miss Mu's family will still have this yaxing, ha ha ha, you can take it. The servants wish 2 early births and grow old together. Mu Fengzhao. Where Mu Qianggui has been wronged, there are people who follow her no matter where she is, but now she is ridiculed by people who have despised her for more than 10 years. She can't bear this maidservant. If you don't punish her well today, she is not Mu Qianggui. I saw Mu Qianggui spread out her palms, a group of red flames burned, and instantly turned into a 5-foot fire snake. The fire snake rushed into the sky, locked Mu Fengzhao in the air, opened its fangs, and slammed at her. Rushed over. The green tears attack is not vegetarian. If it continues, ordinary flesh will be punched out of a blood hole. Mu Fengzhao has never learned skills, and has no talent for learning warriors, mages, and physicians. How can she hide? Mu Qianggui knows this, a maid who washes clothes and cooks, is there any qualification to be able to touch the inscrutable technique? So she exhausted all the strength of her whole body and was bound to hit her with one stroke, leaving her in ashes. Humph, Mu Fengzhao, go to hell. As long as she is destroyed, no one in the Mu family will question her appearance as number 1 in Beijing. The fire snake rushed towards Mu Fengzhao fiercely, but she suddenly disappeared, to be precise, she avoided it. She actually avoided the attack of a green rank mage, how could this be? Isn't she a trash? Both Lu Nanking and Mu Qianggui present were shocked. If she can hide, it means she has the agility of a samurai, then what is she? Swordsman, or stickman? Never saw her weapon. No matter how much it is, if it is later, everyone will see the scene of her killing Mu Fengzhao by Mu Qianggui. This is not okay. Mu Qianggui immediately controlled the fire snake to chase Mu Fengzhao's figure. Mu Fengzhao, who was on the other side of the corridor, narrowed his eyes, and there was a fire snake reflected in his pupils, wanting her to die? We also need to see if we have this ability. She is a lucky person. She just stood there motionless. The fire snake rushed over. Mu Qianggui smiled deeper. It's dead now. Mu Qianggui thought that everything was over, but she didn't know where a plank flew out to disperse the fire snake, and flew in their direction. The fire snake was broken up, and the controller suffered a residual backlash because it did not end the control in time. Before Mu Qianggui could react to the wooden board's attack, he vomited a mouthful of blood. Lu Nanking opened his eyes wide, and immediately hugged Mu Qianggui away from him. The plank hit the ground and shattered. Where did this plank come from? Mu Fengzhao frowned. She didn't move just now, and the wooden board flew out of the corner. Could it be, this is what God said is the luck of a lifetime of 9 deaths? She laughed, really like Xiao Qiang who couldn't be beaten. At this moment, the hidden dragon masked man stood on the roof of the house, silently observing the movement below. I saw Lu Nanking, who escaped in time, gritted his teeth, wishing to eat Mu Fengzhao's appearance, and said fiercely, "You are really vicious, Diao slave. She is your master, you treat her like that. Is it?" Hearing this, Mu Fengzhao squinted his eyes, as if listening to a joke, coldly snorted, "At this time, Master Liu's love is really overflowing. It's like back then, the son of your love for me in the backyard." Cut. I'm just a hero. But what about you? You are a servant, and you are so cruel to your master. If this is in our Lu family, it will be light. Obviously it was the opponent who shot first, she just avoided it. It was herself who really hurt Mu Qianggui. What a man who could open his eyes and tell lies. Yan on the roof looked all right in his eyes, tightly holding the folding fan in his hand, holding back the anger in his heart. Rao is that he has been in the arena for so many years, and he is well informed. He has never seen anyone like him. It is the first time he has seen such a man, and blamed all his faults on others. Rather than teaching this rude Lu Nanking himself, he wanted to see Mu Fengzhao's reaction. A wastewood who knows nothing, should he choose to forbear, or fight back as hard as he does in the forest? He is looking forward to it. I saw Mu Fengzhao smiling, and I don't know when there was a dagger in his hand, glowing with silver light, reflecting the expressionless Mu Fengzhao, a death with a sickle in the night, and a demon waving wings in the dark night. At this time, her temperament is completely different from that of Fairy in White, and she will have a special charm at that time. Interesting. Yan smiled without saying a word. Let's talk about Lu Nanking. He was held in the palm of his hand all the time, and he loved the eldest son of the Lu family who grew up. He has developed a character that likes to protect his own things since he was a child. Mu Qianggui is his beloved woman and is now beaten on her stomach. He didn't want to be more entangled in the reason, he just had to keep in mind that Mu Fengzhao was the one who caused it all. After thinking about it this way, as a water system mage, he condensed a water spirit pearl in his palm. The water spirit orb is only the size of a soybean. Although it looks small, it has infinite power. It can shatter the internal organs of an adult man. Slowly, the water spirit beads in his hand gathered more and more densely, and they rolled bigger and bigger like a snowball. Mu Fengzhao, I can never blame you for your harassment in the past. You love me, I know. But we haven't visited the hall, and you are not my righteous wife, but now it's different. You hurt my most beloved woman. You have to pay for it. After that, the water spirit beads in the hands of the commander Lu Nanking slammed at Mu Fengzhao like raindrops. He didn't believe that she could escape under such an intensive attack. An unexpected scene appeared. The corner of Mu Fengjiao's mouth hooked, and he walked forward quickly, very fast, leaving only a trace of afterimages. The figure was really weird and confusing. The dagger in her hand ran into the droplets of water, and it instantly condensed into an ice dagger, and the frost formed on the surface, which was gorgeous. The next moment, Lu Nanking had a dagger firmly on her neck. You. Lu Nanking looked straight and stammered, "Are you, a samurai?" Mu Fengzhao snorted coldly, "Why, I don't even know how to do this. How can I protect our young master, and how can I be his personal servant?" "So, after so many years away, you learned martial arts behind our Mu family." "Oh, my eldest lady, what you said scared me to the slave and maid." "What do you mean carrying the Mu family? If you have this ability, you should improve your cultivation first." "You." Mu Qianggui was furious, and suddenly smiled, "Even if you can do martial arts, do you think you can get out of this hotel with your own strength? This hotel is under the name of the Mu family, but now the Mu family is no longer the big family shared by the Mu family's children, but has become the exclusive property of Mu Qianggui and her father. The hotel is also surrounded by Mu Qianggui people." Mu Fengzioka felt that a master in the dark was not something she could deal with. Mu Qianggui was laughing presumptuously. After she stopped, she summoned the masters in the dark to appear. There were more than a dozen of them, and they were all samurai, all holding big swords. "Mu Fengzhao, there is a phoenix in your name, which means that uncle sees you as his own daughter, but why do you have such a privilege?" "It doesn't matter, because it will be different soon, and you will die today. Here, there is no longer you Mu Fengzhao in this world. It doesn't matter if you are more than you and less are you." Ha ha ha. Those samurai all wore black clothes, black hats and black half-face masks on their faces, only revealing a pair of murderous eyes. These warriors are all elites selected from the descendants of the Mu family. They are the armed forces of the Mu family. They come to protect Mu Qianggui to find treasures with them. At this time, Lu Nanking took advantage of Mu Fengjiao's moment of distraction, and pushed her out. Fortunately, there was a railing on the corridor to protect her so that she did not fall. "Don't be stunned, cut her off for this lady." "Yes." Ms. Mu's words are the best way to speak. Before the words finished, the samurai all carried their swords towards Mu Fengzhao. Red, yellow, and green halos wrapped the big swords, like a rainbow. "Wow! It's really beautiful." In the next second, she didn't think so, she just wanted to swear, "A samurai, she still has the leeway to escape, a bunch of samurai. Mu Qianggui, count you as ruthless." Mu Fengzhao stood on tiptoe, bent over, and the dagger in his hand slashed through the air, but he didn't even touch the corners of their clothes. These people are really powerful, and the samurai is well deserved. Even if she has wings on her back, she can't beat them. She has used all the fighting skills, all the tricks, all the detrimental tricks she has learned in her previous life, but she still can't hurt them a single cent. But there is one thing that they can't compare, that is, her speed is very fast, so fast that there is only one afterimage, which makes people look confused. But, what can be done soon? The knife made 2 cuts in her back, and the blood directly stained her back. A knife came towards her, and it slashed on her shoulder, dyeing the only pure white clothes red. Suddenly, she fell into a pool of blood. Even with such a severe injury, she did not show a trace of pain. Her weak body was motionless, her eyes were cold, and the pain from her whole body could never make her frown. She is Mu Fengzhao. Even if there was only one breath left in the end, he would never grunt in front of the enemy. Having persisted for most of her life, she had forgotten the painful feeling a long time ago. Hey! Seeing Mu Fengjiao's whole body hurt, Mu Qianggui finally let out a triumphant smile, even holding back the pain in her chest. Her eyes blazed with envy, jealousy, and hatred. What are you doing? Lu Nanking was shocked when she saw Mu Qianggui took the knife. If he wants to kill someone, he has to weigh it. It was Mu Fengzhao who killed him, so he hesitated a bit. Mu Qianggui saw his hesitation, looked at his eyes sourly, and said, Lu Nanking, you won't still be thinking about her, are you? Nonsense. I just want to persuade you, don't dirty your hands, and she is Miu Miu's personal maid, it is best not to make any mistakes, if there is an accident halfway, I don't care, but you. Since you feel so sorry for me, well, then you throw her into the Swallow Cave. It just so happens that Miss Ben is tired and wants to take a rest. Swallow Cave? Didn't you say you don't feel sorry for her? Don't hurry up. Mu Qianggui snatched the knife from the samurai hand, and Mu Fengjiao's blood was still stained on it. She glanced at it, and the smile on her face was distorted to the extreme. The Swallow Cave she was talking about was a cave outside Shili town. The bottom was unfathomable. It is said that there are treasures buried in ancient times. Those who got their treasures from Shili town hundreds of years ago are also said to be from swallows. Brought up under the hole. Due to the unfathomable depth and the lack of light all year round, many people lost themselves and were buried in the bottom of the cave. The reason why Mu Qianggui did this was to believe that once Mu Fengzhao fell, there was absolutely no possibility of surviving. As for Mu Mu, he is the future successor of the Mu family. If you dare to move him and are known by other Mu family members, you will be done. Mu Fengzhao had already lost too much blood, her eyes became very terrifying, and she kept her stamina motionless. Are you still protecting? My lady, you can't even protect yourself. Mu Fengzhao spit on Mu Qianggui's face with a broken spit, his face turned pale with fright, and he screamed. Mu Fengzhao! I think you want to die. Your face is very beautiful, how many men have you seduced with her? Now I have ruined it, so you never want to see people. After speaking, Mu Qianggui made a cut on Mu Fengjiao's face with a knife. Come here, throw her into the Swallow Cave. Mu Qianggui gave an order, and Mu Fengzhao was picked up by the samurai and dragged away. Mu Qianggui looked at the blood-covered back, her face was distorted. If anyone was against her, she would destroy that person. The future owner of the Mu family could only be her. If it wasn't her, then she would be destroyed. The successor. This kind of thought stuck deeply in Mu Qianggui's heart. Lu Nanking watched all this happen, said nothing, he could not say anything, and quietly followed in the footsteps of the samurai. At the same time, there was another person following. Soon, he followed the Yanzi Dong. Lu Gongzi. The samurai stopped. Thank you, go back. But it's okay, I'll be fine. The warriors looked at each other, because of Gongzi Liu's special status, they couldn't say anything they wanted to say, and in the end they had to hand over Mu Fengzhao to Lu Nanking. At the entrance of the Swallow's Cave, a 10-foot tall tree surrounds the entrance. The light won't come in. All around was rotten, the smell of decay. Lu Nanking circled Mu Fengzhao like an injustice. Looking at the wounds on her face from time to time, I was afraid that such a good appearance would be ruined. Mu Fengzhao, Lu Gongzi's hypocritical pity, it's better to throw me into the cave. Lu Nanking smiled, you. Fengzhao, after all, you and I have had a relationship. You have to believe me. Although you are a humble identity, I haven't forgotten you. As he was talking, his hand touched Mu Fengjiao's cheek, feeling affectionate, and felt the cut on her face, frowning involuntarily. A good piece of skin, it was ruined like this. But don't worry, this son will not despise you. After going back with this son to be a housekeeper, and giving birth to a big fat kid, maybe you can still be a concubine. It turned out that Lu Nanking was impressed from the beginning. I had a plan already in my mind. Mu Qianggui, the #1 beauty in Beijing, wants to be in the bag, and Mu Fengzhao, who is the most beautiful in the city, will not let it go, he. Eating from the bowl and looking at the pot, he is not afraid that he has too much appetite and can't hold it. Fortunately, this kind of scumbag was taken away by Mu Qiangwei. At this point, she would also like to thank the Mu family eldest lady and Lu Nanking for not marrying back then. Mu Fengzhao cast a look at him. Are you not afraid that Miss Mu's family will throw you into the frying pan when she knows it? That stinky lady has such a bad temper, you don't need to mention her. As long as you are willing to talk to me, I promise to let the doctor cure your face and drink it spicy. The good day will come soon. Your Excellency seems to want me and you. I'm sorry, I'm not interested in feces. WH. What, shit? Do you dare to say that my son is shit? No, you are the eldest lady's person. She must have given you a lot of benefits in private. Like what? The male favorite in the brothel. You insult me. Presumptuous. Lu Nanking raised her hand and slapped her. Where is the color of pity, sweetness, and jade in her eyes? There is only resentment and shame. Half of Mu Fengjiao's face was instantly red and swollen, and he smiled coldly, and said, Lu Gongzi, although I am just a slave and maidservant, believe it or not, I can make you worse than dead. Don't toast, don't eat fine wine. Do you think you can live better in the future with the way you are now? That's my own business, don't bother you. Good, good. Lu Nan said 3 okay in a row, his face full of swelling and red, a water polo condensed in his palm, and what was left for what he couldn't get. It's better to destroy it. Then you go to die. Lu Nanking said fiercely, and the water polo hit Mu Fengzhao. A dark figure suddenly flashed in front of him, and when he recovered, Mu Fengzhao was gone. The water ball in his palm turned into nothingness. He was looking up, but he couldn't even see the shadow. Not far away, Yan hugged Mu Fengzhao, who was sitting on a tall tree, and looked at Lu Nanking, who was panicked below, with cold eyes. He took out the small pill bottle in his arms and poured out a cold pill. The small pill was crystal clear and exuded a faint fragrance. This is Zhuhuajiluo, which can save the dying person back. It is a medicine that only advanced doctors can practice. The price is very expensive. One is a 3-in and 3e out house. Yan used it on Mu Fengzhao without blinking his eyes. One feed was 3. After a while, a warm air flow circulated in Mu Fengzhao's body, and he felt comfortable all over. When she opened her eyes, it was already dark. Fireflies appeared around her, and small green lights surrounded her, seeming to like the smell of her body. Yan sat motionless, willing to be her pillow, reaching out to hit bugs from time to time. It's this man wearing a mask again. The royal person wearing a dragon jade pendant. Mu Fengzhao's eyes narrowed. We know each other. Yan didn't say a word, the original black pupils changed into a fantasy purple in the night, and the cold black body seemed to blend with the night, hiding his slender body. The weird atmosphere gradually filled. Mu Fengzhao was able to adapt to the night quickly, with moonlight and fireflies surrounding her. She had secretly looked at Yan. There was a faint smell on his body, which made people feel at ease. The smell was very familiar, but she just couldn't remember it. She also found that his distinctive temperament could not be blocked. This person is either rich or noble. The look he looked at her also felt strange. But what does it have to do with her? Yan didn't want to say. Thank you for saving my life. If you need help in the future, please feel free to find me. Mu Fengzhao has always repaid gratitude and revenge, especially those who are good to themselves are more willing to give themselves. But the person in front of him didn't know what his identity was, and he was willing to spend a lot of time to save her, not afraid to offend Mu Qiangwei, at least to rule out the option that he was Mu Qiangwei's person. Hearing this, Yan raised the corner of his mouth and sneered disdainfully, people who can't even save their lives dare to recommend themselves without being overpowered. Mu Fengzhao gritted his teeth. Although he was telling the truth, a piece of trash did not know anything, so what would he use to fight against the two mages? But this sounds really annoying. Anyway. Thank you for your help. Mu Fengzhao held his hand and slipped onto the grass and slid down from the tree. That's a tree 10 feet tall. Ordinary people fell to death. Ye Yan still looked calm, but his pupils shook, and suddenly a pair of fiery wings flashed from behind him, with a flame-like temperature, and he flew down from the tree like a flamingo. It turned out to be a fire mage like Mu Qianggui. His shoes are right in front of Mu Fengzhao's eyes, they are so clean that they don't touch any dirt snapped. A mass of mud was smeared on his shoes. Ye Yan's brows were twisted together, and he growled uncomfortably, "What are you doing? How can it be called a shoe without dirt? Don't be too grateful to me, I just did what I should do." Mu Fengzhao said with a smile. "How does it feel to fall from such a high place?" "I can't fall to death." "Your injury hasn't healed yet, where are you going in such a hurry?" "My little Mumu is still in that hotel. He will be sad when he wakes up knowing that I am not here." Mu Qianggui, a bitch, has a big appetite. That child. Ye Yan's face hidden under the mask was full of playfulness. "Why are you protecting him?" "I am his maid, and it is my duty to protect him." "Is there any problem? Is it necessary to ask her to answer? Is she staying with Miu Miu to figure out how to go back? What question is this person asking?" Ye Yan's eyes flashed. Can a maid be so arrogant? Haha, really interesting. Suddenly, he spread his flame wings and returned to the hotel holding the weak Mu Fengzhao. The two landed steadily on the roof, and Ye Yan helped her hide her aura so that she would not attract the attention of the warriors. "Why are you helping me?" Mu Fengzhao's tone was questioning. "Because of your loyalty." "Faithful? To the Mu's family? Che just a bunch of money-powered guys. It's too late to hate them." Ye Yan looked at her. "Really? It's really unexpected." Mu Fengzhao raised his eyebrows unexpectedly. "Isn't he from the royal family? How do you think he likes to be nosy? Can you tell me who you are?" He refused without surprise, because he felt it was not the time yet. A gorgeous carriage appeared from the street and stopped at the entrance of the hotel. Mu Qianggui and the housekeeper were talking at the entrance of the hotel. "Steward, you shouldn't drive Mu Fengzhao away." Mu Qianggui, "So what? Our Mu family has a big business, what kind of maid do you want?" "But that woman, this lady will never let her stay." "Steward, if you are known by the master, you will be furious." Mu Qianggui, "Daddy, he's so confused. What are you looking for? Do you want to take her as a partial house? You go back and tell my dad that we have never seen Mu Fengzhao on the road." She hated Mu Fengzhao very much. Why can a waste not contribute to the family at all? So many people like it, and so many people care about her. And she is beautiful, has made so many contributions to the family, tried to improve her cultivation, and risked her death to find artifacts, but in the end she couldn't get anything. She didn't know that when she returned to the hotel room angrily, someone in the room had been waiting for her for a long time. "Mu Qianggui, you are finally back. The speed is slow enough." Mu Fengzhao sat on the chair obliquely, facing her, his fingers lightly pressed the tea bowl on the table, his expression calm. "It's just that the scar on his face is too terrifying." She gently stroked her cheek with her fingers, and smiled. "Afraid? You don't have to thank you for this. What do you want to do? This is my site." Mu Qianggui suddenly stiffened a lot. Even if this waste performed well yesterday, she could easily escape her attack. She didn't believe that she was on the Mu family's site. "Where can the waste hide? You still want to do nothing with me? Mu Fengzhao, if you don't die, it's your fate. Since you brought it here again, don't blame me for rushing to kill. I'm so scared. Can you make the effort?" Mu Fengzhao chuckled, calmly tasted the tea in his hand, and suddenly spit out the crumbs in his mouth, frowning, "What rotten tea, then it's terrible. Whoever drinks tea, I didn't expect your taste to be so bad." Mu Qianggui was humiliated and turned into anger. She changed into a long fire whip and shouted, "Go to death." But before the whip was thrown out, the whole person didn't exert any strength, and fell to the ground, and accidentally burned his hand with the fire whip, making the eldest yelling in pain. Mu Fengzhao was very satisfied with the effect of that person's drug addiction. She tied Mu Qianggui up without saying anything, and hit a dead button with a rope. No matter how hard she struggled, she couldn't get away. Mu Qianggui, who had never been wronged since she was a child, was with 5 flowers for the first time. She was trembling with anger and cursed fiercely, "Mu Fengzhao! Your conscience was eaten by a dog. You deserve to be abandoned, so let go of this lady quickly. Otherwise I don't know how you died." Snapped. A slap made Mu Qianggui quiet. Snapped. It was another resounding slap. Mu Fengzhao glanced over with a cold and sullen look, which made Mu Qianggui know what a death threat was. She had no doubt that as long as Mu Fengzhao thought, she could kill her, and would not consider anything else. In other words, Mu Fengzhao doesn't care about the consequences at all. "My old lady is here to warn you, put your mouth clean, or you will have your teeth knocked out. How can you eat in the future? There are things with no memory, and the next time it is more than just 2 slaps. You are so good, you dare to threaten me? Believe me or not." Before she finished speaking, Mu Qianggui slapped again, her entire face swollen like a pig's head. "What can you do if you are a eldest lady? Do you think I don't know the stupid things you did behind your back?" Jealous that Mu could inherit the position of patriarch in the future, so he tried to be able to buy me and let me put medicine in his tea. These things once it is made public, there is no need for me to say more about the consequences. Those stupid things that Mu Qianggui did back then thought that no one would know about it again, naive. As long as you have money, you can investigate everything. Mu Fengzhao clapped his hands and sat on the chair with his legs crossed. He was not very arrogant, but it was really hard to move his eyes away, and he didn't dare to look at her face-to-face. A humble stubbornness emerged from Mu Qianggui's heart. "How can you do this? The real successor of the Mu family is Mu Qianggui. How can you be scared by a servant? Shouldn't. However, the former trash has long since died, and now sitting in front of her is a high-level killer from another world, with a murderous aura that ordinary people don't have in her bones, and she's afraid it's normal." After a while, the woman who seemed to be reborn and spoke, "What's the matter with the old man of Mu's family? Tell me 1-to-1. It's not a question, it's not a threat, but staring into the other person's eyes, with a calm tone like telling a story. Grandpa is a legendary figure in the Mu family. He pioneered the glory of the Mu family. He is the only purple level and yellow level mage in the entire country. He is the honorary master of almost half of the royal family. He is admired by thousands of people. And his sculpture respected by thousands of people. This is a society that advocates force. It is indeed worthy of respect to have such a master. Hey! I've said everything I can say, hurry up and let me go." Mu Qianggui writhed on the ground very unhappily, but no matter how she moved, she couldn't untie the rope. Oh! She counted on her so many times in private, just want to pass it like this? Mu Fengzhao squinted his eyes, looked at her like a joke, then touched the wound on his face, took out a dagger from his arms. "You ruined my face, you really are the #1 beauty in Beijing. It hurts my face, so you can't see where it goes. What do you want to do? Don't come over. You look uglier than me, and you have the same scars as me, just treat me as a beauty." Mu Fengzhao seemed to be telling an objective fact, not even noticing that the face of the woman opposite had become bad, and staring at the dagger in her hand in horror. Mu Fengzhao also comforted, "Don't be afraid, the knife will fall quickly. Really fast. The hand speed developed in the previous life is still there even if the body is changed. Mu Qianggui was shocked and fainted. The wound on his face looked very hideous. On the other side, Mu Mu was connected to the roof by Yan. The child came to the roof for the first time and looked happily at the moonlight that looked brighter than usual. After waiting for a while, watching the freshness of the moon past, Mu Mu remembered that he hadn't seen Xiao Feng for a day, and felt very wronged. As soon as I closed my eyes, I was thinking about how to punish this bad maid. If Daddy was around, she wouldn't dare to bully me like that. Ooh, Daddy! Yan stood behind him and watched him cry, and a cold voice came, "Don't cry." Mu Mu was taken aback, and immediately cried louder, "You bully me." Wow! Yan was taken aback for a moment, not knowing when he bullied him. His face was cold and terrible, but the child was not moved at all, still crying himself. Being with a certain woman is a domineering master. Yan rolled his eyes secretly. "Hey!" said Cao arrived. Mu Fengjiao's arms are strong, and he reached the roof after a few rock climbing. When you reached the room, you heard Mu Mu's desperate cry. The cry was earth-shattering, and the listeners shed tears. Xiao Feng! Mu Mu thought he was crying too fiercely, and hallucinations appeared in front of him. But after smelling the familiar smell in the air, he realized that Xiao Feng had really come back. Mu Fengzhao stretched out his hand to hug him, but was pushed away with the palm of his hand. The young Mu Mu unexpectedly fired a little spark and a little ice ball. The ice ball turned into a puddle of water when it encountered heat. This child turned out to be a master of the same body of water and fire. Yan raised his eyebrows and became more interested in the two of them. "Mu Mu! You actually shot at me! Hey, you left the little master alone! The little master is a child in the hotel. What if you run into a bad guy? You said how old you are. Isn't that unclear?" Hearing this, the corners of the two adults' mouths twitched. Mu Mu was very angry, and the consequences were serious. However, after Mu Fengzhao explained what happened in the day, the tight little eyebrows stretched out and turned from anger to awkwardness. "It turns out that the wound on your face is not painted. Then the little master reluctantly forgives it. You have worked hard." Mu Fengzhao should feel relieved when he heard this, but at his age, he should have enjoyed his innocence, but his experience has allowed him to bear a lot of things that he shouldn't have. Where is that bad woman now? Mu Mu opened his two small hands, a small fireball in his left hand and a small water ball in his right hand. His grandmother dared to lock the little master in the room. "Little master, I will kill her." The little man was thrilled by Mu Fengzhao before he even opened his legs. It was not because of the sudden swearing, but because he had exposed his strength without authorization. The young Mu Mu was already an orange-level heavenly mage. This kind of cultivation is not high among the masters, but he is still a child. He already has this kind of height, and the speed of growth is really terrifying. More importantly, he is a mage of water and fire. One water and one fire, one defense and one offense. This kind of person has two kinds of talents at the same time, and they are mutually reinforcing and restraining each other. What a talent that is against the sky! Yan was thoughtful, and in his unfathomable eyes, it was hard to guess what he was thinking. Mu Fengzhao naturally noticed this, so she was worried. If people know that a child has this kind of talent, not to mention the terrible jealousy, they are people with ulterior motives and want to use a child to do something. It's all possible. Mu Mu, I have told you many times, what do you want to do in front of others? Mu Fengzhao said with a cold face. Obviously, she didn't say too many words, and she was not angry and excited, but her calm eyes made it more clear that she was angry. Mu Mu was taken aback. You should not show your strength in front of others. After speaking, the little eyes stared at Yan, as if he was the superfluous person. Ah! Not only was Yan not angry, but he was very happy in his heart. After feeling two unkind eyes on him, he smiled happily. I thought about it, you should be interested in ancient artifacts. You take me to find. His pair of flame wings is vivid, and he is a fire mage at first glance, but he can transform such a magical thing, it seems that his level is not low. With him all the way, if you encounter a beast that can't handle it, you can resist it for a while. Mu Fengzhao smiled happily. No. No. Unexpectedly, Mu Mu sternly refused. The man next to Xiao Fengfeng can only be me. No one else wants to approach her. When meeting Ye Yan's mysterious eyes, Mu Mu suddenly changed his words. Of course, the rich master can be another matter. Before he finished his words, his eyes fell on Ye Yan's luxurious fabric. Although it was black and looked like a night suit, the fabric was not something ordinary people could wear. Even such an ordinary clothes can use such a good material, this man must be a rich man. Mu Fengzhao looked at the sky speechlessly. He was a young master, why should he be called the master of others? Is the rich man the master? Isn't his private savings a master's master? Ye Yan, called the master, feels very comfortable inexplicably. This mood is strange and happy? He hasn't experienced this feeling for a long time. Ye Yan said, the old man called just now, how about I take you there? Mu Mu had already lifted the corners of his lips, and was so happy. Okay. It's a deal. Since there is a magical tool, it must be guarded by a beast. Is it really good to bring a child? Mu Fengzhao questioned for a long time, but it would be more dangerous to leave him in the hotel, so it's better to go together. It seems that the mysterious person in front of them will not harm them, but will protect them. As soon as Ye Yan looked up, he saw a face with the appearance of Shanai Yuyanyan. He saw a lot of beauties, but few of them were as beautiful as hers with their own style. The gesture is just pretentious but not it's annoying, but it makes people curious and impulsive. Feeling the small tent under his body, his blushing. Fortunately, wearing a mask, no one noticed this anomaly. What happened? It turned out to be. What a shame. Ye Yan had all the desire to die. What's the matter? Don't you leave. Mu Fengzhao put a hand on his shoulder, without any selfishness. I was used to this action in my previous life, and it was a friendly way of expressing friendship, but the other party obviously didn't appreciate it. She pushed her hand away at once, flashed out a long way, and said with a black face, the artifact is in the swallow hole in that forest. You go first, and I will arrive later. Okay. Weirdo. Mu Fengzhao hugged Mu Mu and disappeared into the night. Soon, the three people arrived at the swallow cave one after another, surrounded by fireflies, hovering around the bottomless hole. Silence. There was not even a trace of wind. Ye Yan introduced, the swallow cave is not bottomed out. It is considered by people to be the road to hell. There is a snake in the cave. Generally no one dares to approach here. The predecessors of the ancient times did not deliberately want to keep the artifact from falling into it. The hand of the person in the picture ordered people to throw the artifact into the cave, as well as the elixir, the world's best medicinal material. Until the treasure was discovered by chance hundreds of years ago, people will come here every year to look for the treasure. Some people are lucky and can take the treasure and come out alive. If they are not lucky, they are buried in the belly of the spirit snake. And added, the smell at the bottom of the cave is so big that you may not be able to breathe. I have 2 fragrant pills here for you. There were 2 small pink pills lying quietly in his hand, round, exuding a faint fragrance. Isn't this guy a doctor? Such a coincidence, or an alchemist? Mu Fengzhao thought about it in his heart, and the more he knew, the more panicked he felt. He has so many abilities, they are like 2 oil bottles, and there is no benefit to following them. Why? Although she couldn't let it go, she still accepted the 2 pink and tender pills and thanked them. This pill melted in the mouth, and there was a hint of sweetness. It didn't take long for me to feel more energetic. This pill is used to refresh your mind and prevent you from suffocating underneath. Ye Yan explained. He also took one. Mu Fengzhao probed her head and glanced at the dark hole, a yin wind blowing from the inside out, making her dizzy. Xiao Mu, take out your treasured Yemingzu. Hearing this, Mu Mu pressed his purse tightly, and shook his head in horror. I don't. Small. Mu Fengzhao lifted him up with one hand, stretched out his hand and took out a glowing night pearl. Don't bully the little master anymore, don't the little master's things anymore. Mu Mu pouted his lips, his eyes were red, as if I would cry if you didn't pay it back, and he was so angry that he could hit him all at once. The softest place in the heart. But who is the other party? Mu Fengzhao. Enough, 5-year-old child, still has acting skills? Didn't you say that you are going to be an idol group in the future? Mu Fengzhao twitched his mouth and poured cold water. This is my dearest thing, Xiao, what can I do if you him away? Mu Mu turned and hugged Ye Yan's thigh. And a person who was usually cold, was so hugged, there was no complaint. Listen, the wind blows out from the swallow cave, blowing a cold wind. If you listen carefully, you can hear the sound of wild beasts screaming. But it is very slight, and if a person with impaired hearing is absolutely not aware of this. After special training, Mu Fengzhao's instinct is very sensitive, the hardware facilities of this body are also good, and his hearing is very good. Ye Yan's cultivation is high, even if he can't hear him, he can still feel the change in his breath. Mu Mu took out a tool, called a sound tube, and he could put all the sound into the tube by lying on the side of the hole. The entrance of Swallow Cave is ridiculously big. Inside was a slanting, uneven stone wall, and the three of them slowly walked down. Although the light of Yemingzu was very weak compared to the Swallow Cave, it was more than enough to illuminate the road. Soon they reached the first platform on which they could stand. This small platform is very close to the ground. The ground is full of bird dung, smelling of rotten, and some dry bones. The breathing of the beast gradually became louder, and the cave was still pitch black. The little flames floated in the air, controlled by Ye Yan because they were by their side, illuminating and warming them. At this time, Mu Fengzhao realized that his discolored pupils turned out to be purple. Mu Mu discovered this too, and covered his mouth in surprise, but didn't say it. Ye Yan can't help but admire how clever this kid is. You really belong to the royal family. Prince Ye Yan, right? You have heard of me. Not a question, but a statement. Ye Yan was not surprised. The name of Prince Zitong was too loud. It is not surprising that I have heard of it. On the contrary, it is strange that I don't know him. In order to prevent unnecessary trouble, he must make a black disc and wear it on his eyes every time he travels. Prince Zitong kills like a numb, and doesn't blink. There are not a few people killed, and you can form a small country. This person is cold-blooded and ruthless. This is not what I said. Could it be me? Ahem, anyway, you are definitely not a good person in others' mouths. In your mouth. He is more concerned about this. You saved my life. Although you don't know what you intend to do, you can let a murderous Rakshasa save people. It seems, the rumors from the outside world are still a bit biased. Ye Yan was fascinated by those fantasy eyes, and an atmosphere of danger was instantly filled with him. It's just because I saved you, is there nothing else? Mu Fengzhao pretended to think for a while, and deliberately avoided those deep-meaning eyes. She felt that he had something to tell her, something she didn't know must be hidden in it. Mu Mu looked at the situation and said with a grinning flattery, Master Zi, you must be a good person. You saved my Xiao Feng Feng, and you helped me, a good person. Master Purple. What the is it? The two adults twitched their mouths, and they didn't know how to respond. Where did the 5-year-old kid learn so many words? Ye Yan sneered, not as cold-blooded as in the legend, squatted down on those big long legs, looked at Miu Miu, rubbed his head, and said softly, "Don't call me Master Zi, my surname is Zi. My name is Yan, the royal prince." After saying this, it was their mother and son's turn to be dumbfounded. The prince of the royal family is a very noble status and very valuable. Very valuable. Especially valuable. Mu Fengzhao wanted to educate his children not to see money open. After all, people kill people without blinking. If they offend him, they don't know how to die, and they don't know how to die. However, before she could say what she said, Miu Miu yelled out loudly, "His Royal Highness!" Then he stretched out his hands. "What is this for?" "Yet." Yan petted his head and took out a huge silver ingot from his arms. "There will be bigger ones when I return to the capital." "His Royal Highness, what do you mean?" "Feng Zhao, it doesn't matter if you don't remember it, I remember it." Yan's mouth raised an arc, and the face under the mask was so joyful that it was hidden, so I couldn't see it. But the eyes are not deceiving, so focused, so tender. Would it be like Mu Fengzhao before? Valentine's relationship? That's not right, how did she know the prince? But after all, it was connected with another soul, and had nothing to do with her. The atmosphere suddenly became weird. She opened the topic, "Don't waste time, let's continue looking for artifacts." "Okay. Great. Continue to climb down." They reached the second platform, which is much narrower than the first platform. Moreover, it is covered with moss and mud, which is wet and may slip out if you are not paying attention. The flames could illuminate the moss, and they easily passed the second platform. There were no treasures on this floor, and even if there were any, they were taken away by those who came before. They have to continue down. On the fourth platform, the smell of decay was even greater, and the ground was wetter, and a few small snakes stared at them fiercely, making an attacking posture, but they retreated as soon as they hit the flames. A few spiders about the size of human heads surrounded them. They wanted to attack but didn't dare. They cowered as if they were beaten in fear. "Look, Xiao Feng Feng, this stone has patterns." Miu Miu excitedly pointed to a place to show them. "Where is the stone pattern? It is clearly snake skin." It was still a giant python with black and white stripes, which had been entrenched on the fourth platform. What stood at their feet was not a stone at all, but the body of a giant python. The python heard a little sound and slowly opened his eyes. The place where they were standing began to move. Yan instantly spread his flame wings, one left and one right, holding Mu Fengzhao and Miu Miu and jumping to another stone. On. The flame wings are patterned, not an illusion that is casually disguised. He is like a noble and gorgeous flamingo, gazing down below. "These people are here again." The python saw their reaction calmly, but from the pair of huge eyes, they could see their contempt for them. "It's too much to disturb the snake quietly." The python whispered and whispered in his heart, murmured for a long time, but did not attack at all. "Fighting? That's what barbarians do." The giant python wiggled its tail and pointed at the bottom of the hole with its tail, indicating that there was a baby under them, and told them to hurry down. Then, the giant python made a behavior that stunned them, opened his mouth and yawned, huddled together, and fell asleep. At this time, the beast's breathing sounded again, more clearly than when it was heard at the entrance of the cave. "I'm tired from walking all the way, I'll take you down." Yan, as the prince, was rumored to kill people without blinking, but at this time he was very gentle and unusual, even he himself doubted it. But they couldn't control so much. They immediately came to the fifth floor. The air on the fifth floor was very thin. No matter how high Yan's cultivation base was, he couldn't last long in this state. Mu Fengzhao immediately realized that he was getting tired. In his mental state, he held Miu Miu and stood aside, helping him to rest for a while. "There is something." "What?" "Artifact." "Where?" Mu Fengzhao pointed to the bottom of the cave, and she actually sensed it. She once remembered that the beautiful woman told her that God had given her the opportunity to encounter treasures. So many people came to look for the treasure under the Swallow Cave, but they all returned empty-handed. Not only could she sense the existence of the artifact, she also knew where the artifact was. How many people should be jealous if this is said? She is neither a mage here nor can she become a samurai, and she has no talent to refine medicine, but no matter whether she is a waste, whether she has the ability to protect herself, there are still many people who should be jealous. You wait for me for a while. I went down to get it. Mu Fengzhao carefully walked to the edge. With the sensitivity of the body and the strength of her limbs, she was doing rock climbing with a standard posture. This is an ancient divine sword, blowing hair decisively. It was inserted into the stone wall along with the scabbard. No one had discovered its existence for hundreds of years, but it was discovered by Mu Fengzhao. She took out the sword effortlessly. She didn't know what the sword was made of. She only knew that the thing recognized the master, and it would become very heavy if it wasn't the master, and couldn't hold it. After identifying it as its owner, it will be easy to hold it in your hand. The moment the finger touched the blade, the surrounding scene suddenly changed. Starry sky and bright moon, long white clouds. She stood among the clouds with Haoyu on her head, and there was a starry field where she looked up and swept across. This is the world inside the sword, created by the original owner of the sword, and there is even a breeze blowing. You are finally here, I've been waiting for you for hundreds of years. Hearing the voice, but not seeing the person, the tone was quite a bit coquettish and grotesque. Your Excellency! Sword Soul! Mu Fengzhao nodded, saying that he didn't want this sword, and the Sword Soul was angry. You don't want this sword, what else do you want to do with it? Since the contract has been concluded, you can't abandon it. How can I know if this is a good sword or a bad sword if I don't catch it? When did we conclude the contract? Just when you touched this sword. Overlord Claws. Just accept my sword. This sword cuts iron like mud and blows the hairs decisively. More importantly, as long as you buy this sword and take it home, I can teach you to practice Xingyu 7 Tai Tuo. Never heard of that. What? You haven't heard of Xingyu 7 Tai Tuo pose? Then you must have heard of this sword, the original owner Xingyu old man. I'm sorry, I haven't heard of it. She can't be blamed. Her small town is simple, and there are not many wizards, samurai, and pharmacists. The most important thing is farming. As for weapons, no one discusses them. People from hundreds of years ago don't even know. Ignorant human beings. Well, let me tell you what Elder Xingyu is. Elder Xingyu was the greatest swordsmith hundreds of years ago. When he was young, he was a warrior. Later, I told him that he had a sword. He tried his talent, and he made the first magic sword. Later, as long as the army used the sword he forged, it would be invincible and return in triumph. According to your statement, good swords are in the hands of others. Those artifacts should be passed down from generation to generation. How could you stay in the cave for hundreds of years? What do you know? Elder Xingyu personally arranged me here. Could you be the first sword he forged? Maybe the first one was flawed, so he threw you into the hole and made you wait for the so-called master in the hole for hundreds of years. Impossible. The old man Xingyu will not abandon me. He also left me the 7 Tai Tuo Xingyu pose, and let me teach my new master. In that case, the Xingyu 7 Tai Tuo pose is true, and the Sword Soul is not lying. Mu Fengzhao just thought that he might have picked up a treasure, and the Sword Soul immediately poured cold water on her. Unfortunately, the 72nd pose of the star and the moon is not on me. In the body of a lion, the lion absorbed the tricks. Spiritual energy has become a beast. Why didn't you say it earlier? I said it earlier and threw you away. There is only a sword, and no Xingyu type 72. The cold weapon she is good at is only a dagger, and she can't make a sword. This divine weapon is meaningless to her. Sword Soul was very intimate and comforted. Don't worry, you go down with me, kill the lion, and then take out the moves, everything will be fine. Mu Fengzhao wanted to refuse, but Sword Soul did not allow her to refuse. She woke up in a place where she could not see her fingers. The familiar sound of the Sword Soul heard in her ears, telling her that she was now where the lion was. The closer Mu Fengzhao got closer, the more he could hear the sound of the beast's breathing, each breath was heavy. Suddenly, the rhythmic breathing paused, and the lion smelled the smell of a stranger, opened a pair of blood-red eyes in the dark, and opened a big mouth in the blood basin. You, waiting for the little mortals, dare to break into my land? The lion's eyes narrowed, his nose hummed, and his beard curled up, expressing his dissatisfaction and contempt for the little human beings. The head of the lion is 3 times the size of Mu Fengzhao, and the head has been crushed. Let alone under the dark ground. This lion had long been accustomed to the surrounding environment, and Mu Fengzhao could only see the surrounding area with Yamingzu in his hand. Kill it! The Sword Soul yelled, and the Xingye divine sword was gradually surrounded by blue cold light. The lion watched quietly as the outline in the dark gradually became clear. It's so bold. Traces are also exposed. Under the blue light, Mu Fengzhao was very clear, like a piece of sweet fat lying in front of a lion. Ah! The lion roared and swooped. Mu Fengzhao stepped away in time, causing the lion to pounce. It's so risky. You have to be surprised and attack it from behind. Mu Fengzhao frowned, speaking lightly, he is so much older than me, it is not so easy to attack from behind. If you want to be the master of my Xingye divine sword, you don't even have this ability. I can't carry my hands or shoulders. I really can't be your master. This is the end of our fate. Now the old lady threw you away. Sword Soul yelled, hold on. I believe you, or else you try again. The Sword Soul was talking about a lion, and the lion observed her with red eyes, beautiful moves appeared in his huge eyes. What a sensation if an Excalibur and matching sword spectrum were spread out. But its owner didn't appreciate it at all, and frequently burst out the idea of wanting to give up. The Sword Soul is almost crying. At the moment when they were distracted, the lion rushed towards her with a loud roar, and the open fangs were bound to crush her neck. Go away! The voice came from above. A splendid flash of lightning descended from the top, right in the middle of the lion's heavenly spirit cover. A huge explosion sounded, and Mu Fengzhao didn't know when he returned to the 4th platform. After returning to his senses, Yan put one hand on her waist, and the other hand condensed a very powerful force. He caused the lightning just now. His power is unfathomable. Mu Fengzhao looked down at the corpse below and couldn't help shouting, handsome. The expression under his mask suddenly squeezed. I don't know whether to cry or laugh. Seeing that the innocent and shy girl before has become different, now she laughs presumptuously, unreasonably domineering, and doesn't seem to need him either. Protected. Sword Soul reported, Master, the move has returned to the sword. That's good. Before she finished speaking, she fainted. She appeared in a modern taekwondo gym, with standard supporting facilities placed in front of her. She looked at those familiar props that could no longer be familiar. It must be a dream. You little girl is so smart. An old man's voice came out from nowhere and praised her with satisfaction. Your Excellency is the legendary old man Xingye, right? It was too late to be surprised that an old man actually existed in her dream. She noticed the completely modern dream, indicating that this is her home field. She understood that Elder Xingye was hiding her consciousness in her moves, waiting for future generations to discover. Well, the old man is Xingye. I didn't expect the young people now to know me. It seems that this genius will not be lost. But you are a swordsmith, are your moves useful? Hey! The old man was a purple and yellow level swordsman before he forged a sword, and a martial arts genius once in 1,000 years. Unfortunately, after I was born, the next genius of martial arts has never appeared again. The world is big, I am the only one. At the peak of loneliness, few people can understand. I want to work on a higher place, but the realm of God is too difficult to enter. No. It is impossible to enter. Simply empty your mind and put yourself. His unique knowledge becomes the current ray of consciousness and exists in the sword, and it is passed on to the destined descendants. Mu Fengzhao listened to what he said, folded his hands in his chest, and thought of Mu Qianggui and the old Mu family. She said, both of them have reached the highest stage. They are both geniuses standing on the top and looking at the world. Will they? The old lady of the Mu family also wanted to enter the realm of gods, but failed. It is not easy to figure out this problem. First, she must return to Mu's house and gain the trust of the old lady. However, the answer to this question didn't make much sense to her. She went back to Mu's home with all her heart, only because Mu Fengzhao's biological mother had found it. Mu Fengzhao smiled. Now the genius swordsman who was talking to her was the genius swordsman of the year. Since they have already introduced each other, wouldn't it be a waste of time if they didn't learn something? Besides, the consciousness brought her to the dream state, isn't it for this? Master is here, please be worshipped by the disciple. Who said I would accept you as a disciple? Although this girl is very smart, she has soft bones and has no talent for learning martial arts. If he is a genius who is rare in 1,000 years, then she is a wastewood which is rare in 1,000 years. Genius teaching wastewood is a waste of time. Mu Fengzhao didn't expect that he refused so happily. He didn't say much. He picked up the stick at his feet and played for a while. A few swings were simple, but the move hit the enemy's key. A fragment of the assassination mission that year appeared in my mind. This scene was screened in the boxing room. I saw a person with a gun. The movements were clean and neat, without any muddle, it was perfect. The style of Xingyu 72 Style is steady, accurate, and ruthless. The more Xingyu looked at it, the more she felt that this girl was not simple, and it was in line with his appetite. Isn't she a useless waste? But no matter what he thinks, the hard facts are in front of him. Mu Fengzhao is not just a waste, but also has a keen speed, which will surely become a great weapon in the future. This was unspeakable weird, even the old man Xingyu couldn't tell why. After all, no matter how knowledgeable he was, he would never think that Mu Fengzhao came from another world. Master, what do you think? Do these tricks of disciple make masters eye-catching? Ahem. The old man Xingyu pulled back his thoughts and went back to the topic. Since you sincerely follow the old man as a teacher, the old man will accept it. If you enter the old man's school, you must abide by the rules and get out of bed every day. During the rest time, learn new moves in your dreams. After you wake up, you must practice harder. Don't let it go. Do you understand? Thank you, Master. Your speed is very fast, very sharp, and your limbs are strong, but in the eyes of the old man, it's still a lot worse. First learn the first form of the star and moon, the vast sky. First imagine turning your dream into a starry sky. Stars that are out of reach but within reach, all you have to do is pick them off. Get the stars. The old man Xingyu said. The boxing room suddenly disappeared, replaced by a vast starry sky, with shining stars all over her. How to pick the stars? Mu Fengzhao frowned, and before he could think of a countermeasure, a strong wind blew suddenly. Gradually, the wind became stronger and stronger, and even a large swath of stars was blown away. If she doesn't chase, it will be too late. Go chasing, feel the wind, blend in, relax naturally, imagine yourself as a feather, let the wind take you anywhere, let the wind blow you to the sky. Elder Xingyu guided her, sounding very unreliable, but she still closed her eyes. The wind was getting stronger and stronger, blending in, blending in. Now open your eyes and reach for it. As soon as she opened her eyes, sesame-sized stars floated in front of her, and she could grab a handful when she stretched out her hand, but when she actually stretched out her hand, the stars were blown away by the wind. In this case, you have to feel and reintegrate. After such a round trip, the bones are about to fall apart, and the hands are about to break from exhaustion. A total of 5,307 stars were picked today, which is far behind the old man. After waking up, you must practice hard. If your talent is not good, you must learn to let the things around you drive you. Xingyu's 7 Tai Tuo style is neither a stickman's move, nor a swordsman's move, nor is it a swordsman's move. It looks like nothing but is more suitable for Mu Fengzhao to learn. She calls it an assassin's move. After waking up, she found herself lying in a strange place, like a hotel, which was definitely not Mu's hotel. Wake up! Just drank the medicine. Yayan couldn't hear any emotional tone, and Yayan held a bowl of black medicine with a calm face. It's very bitter at first sight. The stab wound on your body is not healed. You have torn open the wound in such a damp place under the swallow's cave. You should not walk around these days. It is important to take care of the wound. His Royal Highness. Yayan clenched her back, turned around and sternly reprimanded, "Don't call me that." There was an imperial aura in his eyes, which was beyond doubt or rebuttal. It's not a big deal if you don't bark or bark. Mu Fengzhao took the medicine from his hand and ate it dry. Of course, in addition to suffering, there is also hot. Mu Fengzhao, come back to the capital, don't tell anyone that you have met me, do you know? Okay. Yayan's brows were not relaxed from the beginning, and they were twisted together tightly. Do you remember what happened back then? What happened back then? Jiahe in the west of the city, you saved me. Cannot remember. I don't remember, forget it. So as not to cause a murder. After speaking, Yayan disappeared in the room. His cultivation base must be very high. Mu Fengzhao confirmed this idea even more. At a sparsely crowded lake, several men surrounded Yayan, and one of them whispered, "Great Lord." Several other people also shouted, "Great Lord." Putting his hand on the dragon mask on his face, Yayan swept across these people, and asked unhurriedly, "How about your Royal Highness?" The prince hasn't moved around these days. I don't seem to know that you have come out, but the Empress always makes an excuse to come over, because I am afraid that you are not in the house. Mother, I have already explained everything a while ago. She didn't find anything, right? No. But, the Empress sent a few more concubines to let them serve the great prince. Now we are locked in the house, and they are not given a chance to go out and report letters. Yayan nodded. The beautiful and stern face under the mask was exactly the same as the current prince's Royal Highness. They all had the same purple eyes, but his talents were so different that his Royal Highness Yehuang was much inferior in comparison. He didn't understand, because she was born by the same mother, why the Empress always favored the prince, and always took the opportunity to suppress him. He was born a while later than that person, but it was a world of difference. In the western suburbs of the city, his nanny pushed him into the river, and the nanny was sent by the queen. Hurry back to the capital immediately, so that the queen can't find any clues. Yes. Yayan hurried back to the capital, and the Mu family sent many people to find Mu Fengzhao. Mu went to the street to inquire about the news and saw Yiding wearing Mu's clothes from a distance. He also inquired that Mu Qianggui had been injured by the gangster and was unconscious so far. The housekeeper has already investigated the matter as soon as possible. Yiding was stunned for a while before he came back to his senses. It was a child who was asking him, and immediately arrested him and asked, "Are you the child with Mu Fengzhao?" "Yes." "And, Xiao is your young master." Mu's momentum is very strong, and he is not afraid of making things difficult for his family. Yiding, who just came here, had never heard of this, and asked, "What? Are you our young master?" Miu Miu snorted coldly, "Take your hand away, or just wait to go back to the family law and take care of it." The housekeeper, who didn't know whether it was true or false, still didn't let go. The butler appeared at this time and was shocked. He hurriedly guarded Miu Miu and scolded Jia Ding, "This is our little young master. After we go back, I will be responsible for 20. Turning around and asking Miu Miu with concern, "Young master, are you not injured?" "Little master is okay, but I was taken aback. Fortunately, there is no major incident, so young master, can you take us to find Mu Fengzhao? We are about to leave for the capital soon. If we can't find her again, it's hard for us to go back and explain it." Miu Miu's initial plan was not to bring them back, but to come out to inquire about the news, and His Royal Highness did not say how to do it. The housekeeper ardently hopes that he can take them to find Mu Fengzhao. After all, this is not a trivial matter, but a major matter for the entire family of Mu family. An hour later, the butler found Mu Fengzhao, and of course he found all the stab wounds on her body. As a butler, he must have known that it was Mu Qianggui's subordinates. But the housekeeper just casually mentioned, "You are hurt so badly, but our trip really can't be delayed. The master sent someone overnight to give us an order to go back quickly. The eldest lady is now unconscious, and the little master is unconscious. What a mistake, what can we do as minions?" According to the housekeeper's arrangement, a few skilled doctors will be brought along on the road. As for why the eldest lady was in a coma, and why the fifth lady was injured all over, the housekeeper didn't mention a word, just instructed the doctors to do what they should do. At night, Miu Miu was packing up his luggage, and was very happy when he thought of being able to go home immediately.